Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. This season's podcast is sponsored by Oboz Footwear, based out of Bozeman, Montana. I proudly wear my Oboz footwear for hiking, traveling, and more. They have many styles and options to choose from for all your winter and hiking needs. Looking for hiking boots, recovery shoes, or fast and light hikers? Look no further and check them out at obozfootwear.com. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast. I'm your host, Carla Amador. We're on episode 3 of the travel series, and I'm so excited to talk to you today all about budgeting, helping you to figure out what your travel style is, and give you some ideas of what you can do with your budget. Your budget is really going to impact what kind of adventure you can go on, what kind of trip you can plan. Only because you have a small budget doesn't mean you can't go and do something that's adventurous and fun and is going to help you to get out there and get started with traveling. First thing we're going to focus on today is talking a little bit about getting clear on your travel style and getting clear on your budget. In our last episode, I talked briefly about helping you to visualize what your dream ideal vacation looks like. And one great way to do that is to close your eyes and think about what calls to you, what feels alive in you when you think of traveling. Is there a place that you've wanted to visit? Does it feel a certain way? And so as you're thinking about that, this will help you to get clear to plan your trip. Do you want to maybe backpack a country? Do you want to go somewhere more luxurious? Do you want to go on a small 3-day vacation? Those are all considerations. Do you want a road trip? So with that being said, and with you maybe having some ideas in mind, let's talk a little bit about some travel costs to consider. And as I always make sure that I go through my notes, I'm looking at some numbers that I wrote down just to give you an idea. Anywhere from $200 to $800 will get you to actually do a little something. Let's just say you're starting off, this is your first time you want to take a little road trip. That is pretty doable, okay? You can get away for a local trip, maybe like a couple hours from home. I'll give you a couple of examples of some ideas. Let's just say you live in Southern California and you want to go camping and explore San Diego. So you could easily camp. You'd have to book your reservations in advance unless you know how to camp for free on BLM land. And that's a whole nother conversation, but that's an option, right? You need to budget for your gas, food, which you could bring from home to save costs. And then obviously there's lots of things you can do for free when you're traveling in a city that's popular like San Diego. For example, their boardwalk and the downtown areas that you can walk for free at. There's a huge park that you can visit called Balboa Park. And there's lots of things you can look up to do for free. And then for me personally, I like to at least eat 1 or 2 meals out. So let's just say I lived in Southern California and my gas was going to cost me $60. And then I need to budget $60 for meals, which is totally doable. There's some really great Mexican restaurants there. So you could easily budget $20 for breakfast, $40 for lunch, or dinner and lunch. Either way, you're at $120. And then let's just say I wanted to camp. So then I'm getting away with a 2-night trip. That isn't going to cost me a ton of money. So that's like a starting point. Okay. Now, if you want to, let's say, spend $800, you can probably go for a week and you could potentially camp somewhere for a week. You could shower at rest stops. There are certain gas stations that have the ability for you to shower there. There's different services. So you can look around and that'll help you save costs there. And camping, like I said, can be done minimally. There's things you're going to have to research if you want to stay at a state park. Sometimes you have to book way in advance, and that's okay. Start thinking ahead, right? If you want to plan a vacation 6 months out, that'll give you a higher probability to actually book a favorable place if you're camping. Let's just say this is your first vacation and you're like, I can budget $800. You could potentially go and stay somewhere like San Diego and get a hotel for, let's just say, 150 to 200 a night. So let's just say you budget $400 for that. Your gas is 60, you're at 460, and then you've got your meal budget, let's just say, of $200. So now you're at about 660, and then you have some activity budget of $50. So you're still going to be able to get away and have a nice little cultural experience that's going to allow you to stay in a hotel and then be able to eat out. So those are some examples of starting points. Also, for $800, you could potentially catch a really cheap flight to somewhere like Mexico. I used to do this from San Diego. You can cross the border and then you can take a really inexpensive flight from TJ into Cabo, for example. There were times where I've gotten flights for about, I want to say, $50 to Mexico each way. So that's $100. Let's say you want to go for 3 nights. You can get a hotel at around $100 a night, 3 nights, $300. You're looking at 400, and now you've got 400 to budget for food and activities. A lot of times when I visited Mexico, I would just go and do free things and spend time at the beach. So it's possible. All of this takes a little bit of time, research, and your willingness to look at all your options. And also, don't underestimate the possibility of being able to fly out of some sort of hub like LAX. You might find last minute flight deals. There's tons of websites that you could look up to help you with that. Let's say your budget is about $1,000 to $1,500. That is really going to help you to get out and do more. Like I said, a trip to Mexico is totally doable. Maybe you decide you want to do more of a backpacking adventure. It's even possible to get a flight somewhere like Guatemala, and your flight might cost you around $500. And then you have $1,000 budget to budget for your hotel, your meals, and your activities. Again, there are a lot of countries that you can travel for a lot cheaper. So you can even get hotel rooms for $50 a night, and your food is going to cost, let's just say, under 50 a day. So that's about 100 a day. So that gives you about 10 potential travel days if you're really good about how you budget. And then, of course, if you travel with friends, you can split the hotel costs, you can cook. Other ideas also include cruises. I know in California, you could take cruises down to Baja California. You could do cruises for $400 or $500, and it's like a 3 night, if that's something that calls to you. Between $1,800 to $2,000, now you could potentially take an international flight somewhere. You might be able to stay in an all-inclusive resort if that's what you're looking for. If you're going to travel somewhere like Europe, you might be able to get a flight for about $800. So let's just say your budget is $2,000. Now you have $1,200. Depending on where in Europe, by the way, because there's some countries in Europe that are really cost effective. You might be able to get a hotel anywhere from $50 to $100. You budget, say, a week, and you do $700 for your hotel. And then we're at like $1,700. And then you have to budget for your food and your activities. That kind of gives you an idea. You could always eat at home. You could go shopping. You could stay at an Airbnb, cook all your meals, pack your sandwiches and lunches, and then that will give you more budget to play with. Now, if you're starting to get into the 4,000, you have the ability to do more group travel, longer term travel. You could maybe go to a retreat. You might be able to do an organized tour where they take care of all of the logistics and you're just showing up. They're taking you everywhere on that tour. So there's a lot you can do with that, right? You could also spend over a month in a country. You could potentially even spend 2 months in a country with a budget like that, because you can book a Airbnb for a month somewhere and it'll cost you like $600. And that is not a joke. Think about it, $600 times 2 months, that's $1,200. And then let's say groceries is $1,000. So now you're at $2,200. And then the rest is activities. Again, when I travel to certain countries, I'm really just doing free things. I'm hiking. We'll talk more about some of the free activities you could do, but the beach, walking the city. So it's really doable. I just want you to know that there's a lot you can do with a budget of, let's say, 2,000 and up. And then, of course, there's those of you who would love to go and do luxury travel, which you're going to need 5,000 and more for something like that. I wanted to take a moment to thank this season's Rise and Wander podcast sponsor, REI. REI is the outdoor gear retailer of the 52 Hike Challenge. I've been a member since I started my 52 hikes in 2012, and they've helped outfit me for all things hiking and outdoors since then. Becoming a member has many perks like 10% back annually on eligible purchases, a satisfaction guarantee, which gives you up to a year to return any purchases you aren't satisfied with, free shipping in the US, and so much more. Please visit them at rei.com. Join me for a year of hiking in 2025 with the 52 Hike Challenge. Commit to your personal journey outdoors alongside a supportive community and make 2025 your year of hiking. Take your family, friends, furry pets on an adventure they'll always cherish. Plus, you'll gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through nature and hiking. Learn more and sign up at www.52hikechallenge.com. And see you on the trails. Let's just say you want a waterfront bungalow in the Maldives. That's going to cost you $1,200 a night. But if you've got that kind of money to spend, then all your options are open for you. And you know what? Maybe you have that kind of a budget. Maybe you travel once every 2 years and you're able to put away that kind of money and go somewhere really super special. I think if you budget like 2 to 3 grand, you can go on a pretty nice trip. Now that you know that, it's time to actually set your budget. This is the time where you're going to go sit down and really look at your finances and say, hey, I think I can set aside X for this trip that I want to go on. And this is where you start getting disciplined and you start either saving, or maybe you already saved money and can start using it. This is the research part, right? This is where you start digging into what we talked about, which is what does your dream trip look like? But now you can actually start breaking down the costs for where you want to go and the activities you want to do. After you do your research, now you can really put a solid budget in plan. And don't forget to also add an incidentals line for emergencies or extra cash in case of anything, because things happen when you're traveling and you just want to be prepared. So having a little cushion in your budget for those unexpected things is going to be really good. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say you want to go to Greece and you want to go see Santorini, Mykonos, and Naxos, for example. Those are very popular islands down in Greece. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your flight costs for the time you want to visit. You'll probably want to do some research and find out, are there times where it's going to be more cost effective or maybe a little more budget friendly? So you can put a line down for that on your Excel sheet if you use Excel or Google Sheets. However, you're going to do that. So you're going to write down flights, 800. Let's just say you're going to fly into Athens and then you're going to take a ferry. So you're going to write down your ferry costs. And then once you do that, you're going to basically start looking up your fees for your hotels. So let's just say you start researching, you look in Santorini and it's about 200 a night, 600. Then you look up things you want to do there. Do you need a car rental? So you're going to start delineating all of that. So for example, for a car rental, it's going to cost, let's just say $400 for 3 nights. And then you need to also think about your meals. So think about, okay, am I going to buy food and cook it? Or am I going to want to go eat at restaurants, and looking up the prices so that you have an idea. And there are a lot of resources, by the way, to find out costs when you're traveling. You can go online and do some research and find out what the latest prices are. And also, there's some really great books by Lonely Planet, and they delineate how much you can expect to pay for lodging, for meals. So that's another really great resource that I like to use when I'm doing my research. Okay, so obviously you need to budget for spending money and activity money. I try my best to make my dollars stretch when I'm traveling. So I try to focus a lot on things that I can do that once I'm in the country isn't really costly, going to beaches, cultural walks. On that note, there are a lot of free tours for visitors. And so the cities or tour companies usually put together like a free walking tour. Highly recommend it. I typically try to tip 20 USD for a tip. And it's up to you. It's tip based. So you got $10, give them $10. And of course, the tips depend on what country you're in because the dollar is different in different places. Other things to think about when you're budgeting is to not forget about exchange rates. So places like Europe are going to have different prices to consider from places where you get more for your dollar, like Thailand. The dollar might stretch a lot more there than in some place like Italy or France. So make sure that you're aware that sometimes the dollar might actually only be 75 cents in a country versus $1.50 somewhere else or $1.30. Keep that in mind as you're thinking. And also don't forget the power of going online and typing in travel ideas for your budget or the activities you want to do. And there's going to be tons of resources out there for you. Another great tip is to use the public transportation. So I was in Japan and we used public buses sometimes. We also used the train, and places like in Italy, they have a really great transportation system. You can book your trains online, and that was a really easy way to get around. There's also been countries where I haven't been able to get around so easily, and I've had to think I really need a car. I just came back from Uruguay, and it was going to be difficult for what we wanted to do to use the public transportation. So we ended up just renting a car, and I split that cost with my mom. And it wasn't cheap, but it also was like the convenience of being able to just get in the car and take off rather than trying to look for Ubers and trying to figure out where the bus station is. It just depends on where you're traveling. Like recently, when I was in Chile, I decided to go to Argentina, and you can easily catch a bus there. So I basically went to the bus station and I paid for my ticket. Easy breezy. You get dropped off right in town where I was in El Chalten. Sometimes the public transport, depending on the country you're in, is easier to navigate than others, especially in countries where people really need to use public transport. You're usually going to find that it's a lot more robust and easier to navigate. So never underestimate the cost savings and the ability to get around. Also, you're going to want to give yourself extra time when you are going to be using the public transport. Now that we've talked a little bit about budget and some free tours and tips, it's time to really start saving if you haven't started. Getting some sort of travel savings account. What I like to do is have my checkings at one bank, and then I have a travel savings at another bank. I transfer money into this account, and every year I know I've set aside money for travel costs. And so that helps me to not see that money. Let's just say it's attached to my checking, and for whatever reason it's sitting there. I might be more tempted. I'm just thinking about people who maybe have a harder time with seeing money there. So that's another way of saving. You can also have like different budget accounts at different banks. If you have cash laying around, maybe you have a piggy bank that you're putting money in for your travel account. So make sure that you have that set up. Another thing that I wanted to share that was a tip is make sure to check your passport and check requirements for travel. Some countries require your passport to be valid for at least 3 months before you travel. So, for example, how that works is, let's just say my passport expires in 2 months. I might not be able to go. So make sure to check the requirements, make sure to check your passport expiration date, because the last thing you want is to look at your passport and realize, oh, my passport expired, or wow, I didn't realize I needed a passport. So now that's going to take extra time. And the process of getting a passport, I don't need to get into it too much, but there are ways to expedite a passport. And also you can do that with the postal service here in the US. Okay, so disclaimer on this part. I want you to know that I am not a financial advisor and that I do take finances seriously. And I am going to share an idea with you. However, please, whatever you do, make sure to use this advice responsibly. I am in no way condoning debt. So let's get into credit cards, mileage, and points. So a long time ago, I got my first points credit card and I still use it. I absolutely love it, which is why I'm going to talk about it. So I have this Capital One Venture credit card. And when I first opened it up, they had a special promo, which is still going on because I just checked. And I think it was like 70,000 points if you used the card and spent a certain amount of monies within a 3 to 4 month time frame. Obviously, I have my expenses that I'm always paying no matter what was coming out of my checking account. What I did is I transferred over all my automated payments, my cell phone bill, my utilities, anything that I could pay with my credit card. I moved over and then I pay my credit card in full every month. And so with that, I get points and I'm able to earn these rewards. And I got all these miles, which up until this point, I've actually been using for a lot of my flights. I used it for Africa. I used it for my last trip to Chile. I used it for a lot of travel here in the US. So it works and it's nice because now it's, hey, I have miles for this flight. I actually think I've got 3+ international flights so far. So it's been awesome. I really love it. And again, I use this responsibly. Please do not get a credit card if you can't pay it in full. It's just not worth it. It's not fun being in debt. And then also, you're not earning points when you're having to pay interest expense. So I just wanted to share that as a bonus tip and way that you can make travel more affordable. So when I've done that, let's just say going back to my example of Greece, my flight is taken care of. So now that saves me like $800 in my budget. And I hope that is helpful for you. I will be adding my referral link. Please think about using it if you decide to look into this credit card. And by the way, no, I'm not sponsored by them, but I really love this credit card. I actually have my travel savings with Capital One. I've been a Capital One customer for many years. I would say 10+ years. And so I've been really happy with them. That's why I'm talking about them. If you travel a lot, they have the Venture X card, and that card gives you free access to travel lounges. If you're ever at the airport for a long period of time, you can go to the lounges for free. And these lounges are epic, by the way. If you haven't been to one, they are really cool. When we went to Africa, we went to a lounge and they had food and beverages, and there's comfortable seats, and you can work. So anyways, just something to consider. If you are going to be traveling a lot, that's another option. Both of those cards do have fees. Again, it just depends on how often you're traveling. To me, the fee is minimal. And so it's worth it for me to be earning all those points every year. I hope that all of these tips help you as you're getting clear on your travels and all the possibilities. And this got your wheels turning and you're excited to see where you can go to next. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much. Please share this with a friend, leave me a comment, and see you on the next one.